Fuck. Now, if somebody farts, does that mean that it's an actual fart? No.
I don't think
It's
so.
either you or me at that point. So
I think it's like like Howard Stern, like they just have a button, that they hit.
Fred.
They just have a button.
Right.
Howard Stern still has a fart button.
Hello. I think we're live.
Great.
Because I was okay. I just heard like a double back. So make sure your YouTube is muted, but you're not on a computer. So mine is now.
No, I have the computer here too.
Okay.
So I can see the comments. So if anybody hops into the chat.
So yeah, there's a couple people in the chat. I see them right now. Chatting away. And
absolutely beautiful, beautiful day in Brighton, Massachusetts today. I mean, it's like this is prime Boston weather here.
Right.
This is what you live for, and very rare.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Sammy White's Brighton Bowl. That's where my 11th birthday party was. Everyone's birthday party was at Sammy White's bowling alley in 1979.
That definitely does not exist anymore.
Right. It's on Soldiers Field Road.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Down near Charles River. Okay, the chats are coming in big time. Let's put that on a separate window so I can see those.
How do you do
that? Well, on a Mac, I just kind of I'm on Chrome, so I just pulled it out and made a separate tab or whatever. I see Robbie White, Jay Dunn, Jeff Schuler, etc.
Love it.
Looks like we've got about 33 watching. I was hoping for a couple thousand more, but
no, that's about what we had on our troll session.
Yeah. So yeah.
How many people were there? How many of these people were there for the troll session? We got Dear Stella from Austria is in.
Nice.
Oh, and Eric Barrow. Heather. Oh, wow. Eloy's on. Oh, this is nice. Oh, hey, Danny. I'll see you in a few days. Oh, this is fun. Well, should we get started?
Sure. So what is happening? What are we celebrating? What's going on?
Well, I feel like you had a great kind of intro.
So do that again, but with more feeling.
Or whatever.
Do that again, but with more feeling.
Exactly.
So how did we start the whole thing? I feel like, back in maybe the year 2000, 2001, I was kind of transienting between Los Angeles, but living mostly in Minneapolis. But I had a satellite apartment, kind of second bedroom of a buddy of mine from high school that let me go there anytime. And a couple of my really good friends lived there, Dorian. And so I was going a lot to Los Angeles. And I do remember being at Dorian's house on Bronson and somehow getting the CD of Your Headroom, or I don't think it was demos yet. It was and it was Latterman, Greg Latterman from Aware Records saying, hey, we just signed this guy. I think you'd like it. And I remember checking it out. I'm like, oh shit, this guy sounds like Todd Rundgren, which is very rare to hear someone who has, that kind of vocal stuff, but also the chords. And because at that point in the year 2001 or whatever,
it had the power pop and the Philly soul.
Yeah, exactly. It had the soul singing part. And then also just cooler chords than your average 4 chords of doom shit that was going on those days. For you music nerds, that's a 1-5-6-4, or jumble that into whatever you want to do, chord progression. Which basically we've spent our last 20 years fighting. But so in Blue, I don't think you really had songs like that. I don't really remember any that were that formulaic.
Three's a Charm had just the 3 chords, but it like had to.
Yeah.
But then the melody is like a major 7
Yeah.
again.
But you didn't fit in, like, I'm not going to name names, but I was working with lots of other artists at the same time too that were just, going down that pipe. And so that was really exciting to me to hear someone with some extra, melodic and like harmonic depth that was just kind of not ordinary for the times. And so I was happy to have Latterman send that over. Steve Smith, who was your A&R guy, I think called and said, "Hey, let's get you two together." I remember you guys were talking about working with another producer because Bill, your guitar player, had done a record with I think it was Matt Hyde.
Oh yeah, I don't think I ever did meet with Matt Hyde. I don't have a great memory,
right,
in general, but especially of that time. But
I remember that being a thing. Like Bill Guerra had been like, "Yeah, what was his band before? Whatever it was, they had done something." Yeah.
Who I'm a huge fan of. Also.
And my manager Frank McDonough also managed Matt Hyde at the time, and I think so. It was like Steve, your A&R guy, calling up my manager and saying, "Hey,
well, I did with Stasium, so I wonder if you're mixing up Hyde with Stasium."
I think it wasn't. I just remember Bill Guerra saying that, so I don't know if you were interested or not. But I said, the idea was, let's get you two together. Let's try something. And at the time, my studio was in my house in Minneapolis in the basement. And this, we're repeating for those of you who were there last time until we started getting hacked. But this was about, I would say, early September of 2001. And we were booked to start on like a weekend, just a weekend. Blue was going to come from Boston to Minneapolis, do 2-3 days, record a song or two, see what happens, see if we like each other. That was booked for like September 14th, 2001. And as we all know, on 9/11, 2001, that terrible thing happened in New York City, and it kind of stopped the world. So everyone's travel plans, everyone's business plans, everything kind of stopped. So I was like, oh, this might never happen. We did reschedule. I looked, it was in October, and we got together that weekend, and you flew in. I picked you up at the airport. We went to Noodles and Company. I think we immediately went back. The idea was to re-record one of your songs from that you were possibly going to re-include on the first major label album, which was That's Life. So we did like a super power poppy version of that with these awesome vocoders in the middle. I remember You Only Get One. Remember that one?
Well, I think we had said you had just finished working with Andrew WK, and you were kind of like still obsessed with some of those techniques.
Yeah.
We replicated on that song, and at some point I should like share it for like some limited period of time, like just on Instagram stories, because I've never shared it at all. But it sounds like Andrew WK, like really. And then the other song we did was "You Know I Know You Know," which was a relatively new song. I hadn't done even a demo of it at that point, and I was demoing, at that time, as well as recording with Ducky, who I saw last night, by the way, for his 60.
Fantastic.
And that song, basically you threw in all of the power pop stuff.
Yeah.
And what is on the record, because I have not listened to that song in years. And last night, not only did I listen to it, but I listened to all the alternate mixes because I was trying to decide what mixes I wanted to use for the vinyl mastering. I already told you that, Fields, but just to like catch everybody up. And everything on that song is what we recorded in that weekend. And I don't even think we did much to the mix.
No, it was really, it was great. And a side note to that is, I mean, you came for like 2 nights, 3 nights maybe, and stayed at my house. And we invited over Michael Bland to play drums on both songs, and he probably played them both. I remember we probably played both songs, and then I think we went out to August Moon, my favorite restaurant that night, Vietnamese restaurant, and got to hang with him a bit.
Don't know Michael Bland, legendary drummer and producer, multi-instrumentalist, but he was very well known at that time for having been the drummer for Prince's New Power Generation.
Yeah, he played on Cream, Diamonds and Pearls, I think Get Off, that period of like early 90s, and was just like the center of the Minneapolis music scene, still kind of is. So I would pull him in on a lot of projects. He played on a lot of albums I was making at the time, and still, but he played on those two. And we went away, and I don't remember what happened next, other than we started booking time. And the idea, you were telling this last time about let's do it in Boston, though.
Yeah, because I think, you know, the reaction to, I was obviously excited about everything that we did, as I kind of always am about everything right after I've done it. And but the I think, you know, the reaction from the other guys in the band and other people was that I don't know, it was an interesting it was almost like, it wasn't like everybody loved, like, you know, I know, you know, and hated That's Life. It almost was like if we could figure out whatever the middle of those things.
I mean, they were pretty disparate. Is that the word? Like, just completely, like, one is so kind of light and fluffy and kind of just, you know,
it's like I mean, that's probably the most Todd Rundgren almost of anything I've ever done.
Right. And then the other one was like just super fast, powerful, like, you know, compressed and just, you know, distortion. So
the idea was that if we could do it in Boston and pull in Ducky and the legendary Room 9 from Outer Space in South Boston, Mass, that we would kind of like be on our home turf a little bit more. It would also give those guys kind of more input and say into the making, their feel and all those kinds of things. And so that's how it started. You came to Boston.
And another side note on that is just, I'm from Boston, so my whole family lives there. So I stayed with my mom the whole time in Jamaica Plain, which was, you know, very close. So that was a great bonus. I don't know, we might have done a couple trips, but I came and we did it at Ducky's, which was, I do have some pictures we can show at some point, was not the finest studio in terms of its aesthetic, in terms of its
and I had already made a record there,
right? You know, so there was no hot water. I remember that. There was only cold water in the bathroom, but the sounds were incredible. It had that concrete floor, and that drums sounded incredible. And of course, Ducky's tones were all dialed in, and his gear, his cage amp, his Ludwig drums, everything was just dialed.
I think you immediately like got that he was a really, really brilliant engineer who also, like, thankfully didn't feel like he needed to be a producer, you know. So he was an amazing foil, you know, for you. Both of you guys were actually, and I feel like you probably were excited about his engineering side, and I know he was excited about your production side, because it was much more, I mean, you were doing the kind of most cutting edge everything for rock records, like, at that time. I mean, you were at the forefront of like sample replacement and I don't know. I'm just trying to think what I was kind of, some of it was sort of coming back to me last night. To all
well, I will say this. The first record, I mean, I came up on tape, and I mean, I know you did Headroom on tape, your first album.
Mm-hmm.
And I did everything on tape up till about 2001, and I had done a record called Iffy, and that was followed by Andrew WK, and those were the ones that forced me to really learn Pro Tools. And I just didn't think of Pro Tools the same way, like until around your record, which is usually Pro Tools was a thing that you would just temporarily do some stuff on, and then you'd fly it back to the tape deck so that you could mix on a console. And my brain didn't yet understand that no, Pro Tools is the final, and then you spit out the mix and we're done. Finally, yours was like the first year, 2001, 2002, where I really took that to heart and basically switched to in the box, which was the sample replacement, which was like the gridding of things. And we weren't even, I think, yeah, we just, Beat Detective was kind of a new thing, being able to like tighten drums up. So,
and you know, flying thing.
Yeah, just flying things like, and playlists, like things like we used to have to punch vocals in until we liked them, you know, and now we could take 8 takes and kind of pick the best ones without worrying about running out of tracks. So
yeah,
that was right at the beginning of that. So in late 2001, and then the other thing that was happening in my life at that time is I was this close to moving and deciding to move to Los Angeles to what I would say is go get my slice of the pie. And I did move in March 2002, and that was right in the middle of our album.
Yeah, and so then we kind of, you know, and obviously I was interested in going to Los Angeles for a variety of reasons at that time. So yeah, then we kind of switched over and worked at some pro studios and also worked at your home studio.
Right.
There.
But mostly we were almost done. So we did most of the record kind of at Ducky's in Boston. You know, occasionally at my home studio. You know, some of the stuff remained, like the Dan Wilson song remained. Some Things Gotta Give. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
That was cut like completely. I think you played the drums on that one.
Yeah.
I do think that, which is a feat of engineering, I must say. So,
wow.
Well, you know, so half there. And then when I moved to LA, you started coming out there. And that's when we were kind of getting to finalizing and mixing. And then at that point, we were starting to go to studios like, I think the one we worked at a lot was Larrabee.
Skip Sailor.
Skip Sailor was the main one on Larchmont Strip. Skip Sailor was, I loved that place. And we did most of it there in a short burst. And then we had David Thoner, who also my manager, Frank, also managed him. So he's like, hey, let's have Thoner do some mixes. So he did some at the record plant in Hollywood. That was like a 2-day thing, 3-day thing. And then he did another one at the studio called Atlantis, if you remember that, which was the party song. Where do we go when the party's over?
Yep, which did end up making it onto one. I think that's on the Redhead Record Club.
Yeah, so there was a lot of kind of travel and you know, more than most records, we were all over the place.
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to look at the comments here a little bit just to see. I think I'm ready to like kind of move into question taking here, but somebody said they didn't know Dan Wilson wrote Something's Gotta Give. Yeah, and actually I wrote that in Minneapolis at Dan's house, along with some other songs. Surprisingly, Too Cool for School, which ended up on one of the compilations that I did. And we wrote some other stuff as well. But somebody asked, I know a lot of people want to hear about how Andy Sturmer got involved in the record. And I you know, listening back, he's on a lot of the record.
Yeah.
He made it into like a lot of the things, like all the background vocals on Searching for the Satellites are him, all of them. Like I sing some of the biggest hooks in the thing. It's all just him singing. So there are things like that. And obviously I wrote, you know, a couple of songs.
And he played drums on one, which was the Dance Dance Baby Doll Dance. And we recorded that at Dorian's little one-car garage studio in Hollywood. And I remember, you know, we're all in the same room. There wasn't like some separate room for the drums or anything. We're all kind of crowded in there, and Sturmer's playing drums right there. Of course, sitting down. We're all so used to him standing and being a front man.
I remember
no.
kind of like, I'm like, oh yeah, like I literally remember thinking, oh yeah, I guess he could play sitting down too.
Yeah. Well, when I first met him a couple years before that, I had asked, I was like, you know, do you sit when you play drums? He's like, oh, of course I do. At this, you know, it just was a thing. Like, I'm the lead singer, so they came up with this I got to stand concept. So that's, you know, an extra level of impressiveness from Sturmer, is that he can do that and sing great. Like sometimes like singing out of time while the beat's like on. It's just amazing.
So,
I mean, the best live band ever, Jellyfish.
So how do you remember like him getting
Right.
involved?
Well, I had started, so, you know, I'd been chasing him down since the mid 90s, a huge fan of the two records from 90 and 92. And at some point I don't even remember how, but I got his address. I think he was living in the Northeast at some point. And I got his address and I sent him a bunch of records I made. And one of those was Willie Wisely Turbo Sherbet. And that came out in 97, I think. And somehow it was like a letter along with it. I was like, you know, I'm a big fan. If there's anything we could ever do together, please let me know. And he called me on the phone once and I answered. I was like, hey, this is Andy Sturmer. Hey, dude, stuff's great. You know, what's up? You know, we just talked, kept in contact. It was kind of at the beginning of email, so it wasn't that easy to be like, hey, I'll just email you some files. None of that was going on. This is just phone call time. And at one point I was making a Dovetail Joint album in the year 2000 at Sound City in wherever that is in the Valley. And we were cutting for 2 days of drums. And Sturmer had told me he moved to LA recently, and that next time you come, give him a call. So he called me, and I called him and I said, dude, I'm at a studio for 2 days. Come on over. He comes to the studio, hangs out. That's the first time I met him in person. And it was with Dovetail Joint, and Dorian was there. And we were, you know, and it was awesome. And he's like, this is the studio where we cut Amorica by the Black Crowes, which he played on. His credit on that record is Assorted Musical Gifts by Andy Sturmer. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Well, I think it's just like lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we kind of bonded around that day. And then I don't know, about half a year later, he called me out of nowhere and just said, hey, do you want to go to Japan with me? We're going to work on the Puffy Amiyumi record. I need someone to come with me, an engineer. And so then we went to Japan and we became buds, and I did that whole Puffy album, came back, and your record was kind of next. So at that point, and I know you're a huge, you know, Jellyfish fan, as a lot, you know, most people are. And I just said to Andy, I said, I'm working with this guy. Same with Dan Wilson. You know, Dan was a guy that just kind of was a Minneapolis guy. So I just said, hey, you should, you know, do you want to write with this guy that I'm producing? And they both said yes. And so you take it from there. How did you meet? The first day you hung with Sturmer, how was that?
I mean, it was interesting. I was nervous, you know, obviously. But yeah, it was good. I remember that he looked a lot different even at that time, which I was kind of like surprised by. But he was very generous and open about like kind of answering, you know, my geeky questions and that kind of stuff. And he was fairly open to writing. It wasn't like, it was more like I wanted to write certain kinds of power pop things, and he was cool with going along with it, you know. And he was a generous co-writer. I think especially for where I must have been at that time, and when I didn't have a lot of experience co-writing.
Was it like, hey, what would you sing over these chords? Or was it lyrics? Or what would you say was the, you know, or was it everything?
It was definitely everything, but also he was letting me like run with the balls too, and I do very distinctly remember him not being judgmental. I actually know for a fact that there were things that he was kind of like not particularly excited about, but because I was excited about them, he was like, okay, good, let's go with that,
Right.
And I think that is surprising, kind of, like thinking back on it, especially considering who he was and who my attitude towards, he obviously knew I was a huge fan and all that kind of stuff. But the most unusual thing about us writing together was that I had written this song in college, and I had written it specifically to kind of be my jellyfish-ish song. And I asked him, if he would help me finish it and help me record it. And that's Dance Dance Baby Doll Dance. So he added the bridge. Everything else I had already written, and we left as is.
Yeah.
And he wrote the bridge with me, which obviously kind of showcases him vocally. And then he played the drums and honestly came up with a lot of the production ideas.
I think, I remember there was like a Barbara Ann thing. It's like a dark of romance. And I think that was him.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Like the low, and you're like, whoa, he's a high singer, but nope, he's a low singer on this one.
Singer. No.
I absolutely love that song. And his drumming is so, I remember like when he's drumming, I'm going, this dude loves Steely Dan. There is no question about it. And of course, he does. I mean, knowing him, he loves Steely Dan, but he kind of drums like that clean, like the hi-hats, just the way he touches them, it's just like tight little, amazing. So I'm so happy to get him in on that. And then of course, after that, I had him on all kinds of stuff. He sang on Switchfoot, Rooney, Glenn Phillips, all that stuff around that time. So it was really cool.
Impression, like when we were making the record, and I hope this isn't like, I don't know, giving information out that people don't want to know or whatever, but I sort of got the impression that he was psyched to like be hanging out.
Yep.
It seemed like he wanted to like hang.
Yep.
Like, and he was around a lot.
Yeah.
And, he and I personally tweaked a bunch of the mixes on the record during the mix session. I don't know if you remember that or not, but we had a B rig.
Yeah.
In
a little in the ISO booth at Skip Sailor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Watching You Sleep, I know, is one that we kind of did together. And he didn't do anything else on that song.
Right.
Like sing on it or play in it or anything, but he sort of like lent another set of ears to like help sort of get that song where it needed to be. So he actually was very, very involved in the record. And and that's, that was part of, I think, what makes it the record that it is, for sure.
No question.
I'm looking at some other questions here. Somebody wanted to know why there are two versions of the record. And I can kind of answer that simply. So Aware Records had a deal with Columbia, which the parent company was Sony. And so a lot of their records were getting what they called at the time upstreamed, which and basically the few records that were before mine, which was immediately preceding my record, was John Mayer's Room for Squares. And the one before that was the John Ondrasik Five for Fighting record with what was the big hit on that? Superman. And then before that, it had been Train with Meet Virginia.
Yeah.
And all those records got upstreamed. So it almost was like Columbia was ready to upstream every record, but they would sort of like test the records out on Aware. So the original version came out on Aware, but then when a record got upstreamed, then Columbia got involved. And a lot of things changed at that point. There was an art director, for all the artwork on the record. And, then there was more,
they sent us back to do a couple new songs. I can to freshen it up so that it was, I think also just so that it was not the exact same release, so that there'd be some sort of bonus for people who had already bought that version. So you went back and wrote, is it Get Up and Crash?
Yeah, Get Up and That's When I Crash, which were both like sort of specifically designed from Aware and Columbia's point of view to be like singles, because they wanted singles,
Right.
And
rock radio was still alive at that point.
Yeah,
which is, it's completely gone now. But back then it was, that active, the AAA and the active rock was kind of like happening, so you could fit right in there with those tunes, and I think somebody else fits in there too. But it was because our tones were kind of heavier. Like when I go back to the record, I'm like, wow, that's some distorted guitars on there,
Yeah,
like
that's what I had been doing.
Right.
It wasn't like it was true to what I was doing, and that was very popular in Boston at the time.
Right.
Those kind of indie sort of Weezer-ish influenced rock records.
Right.
It was okay to be like poppy and heavy.
Yeah.
At the same time. And so that's really what I was into and what I wanted to do. But yeah, so obviously we had to drop some songs in order to add the new songs. And that's when the new artwork came in and all that stuff. And I still really like Get Up. I don't really like That's When I Crash that much anymore. I don't know. But it's cool. It's got some, it's got some tricks.
Yeah, it does. But it's it's great.
Couldn't not have the tricks. So let me see here. Oh, there's something about Ducky here. Let's see here. What's the secret to how clean Ducky's recordings are? I think your records and Lurch, they're pristine. See, I would say that they're not pristine. I would say that Ducky is more of an old school engineer who thinks musically about engineering. He's not trying to perfectly capture everything. He's trying to capture a sound that sounds good. You know what I mean? And he's an expert at that. Truly one of the greatest.
Well, let me tell a Ducky story at one point, which is, he's like, just to see like how precious he is about things, which is, I would say to him, Ducky, all right, let's get a nice clean verse, clean guitar sound, maybe with a little bit of crunch, but just your basic. And he would hook up his stuff and, basically hand you this guitar and there'd be a sound, and he'd go, okay, here's a guitar sound.
Totally.
Not like, I don't know, just I always thought I will never forget that. Just like the most blandest thing to say, which is, here's a guitar sound. You asked for one.
Yeah, and I think the subtext of that is that like that is one of 699 guitar sounds that get you, but here's one that might might like
maybe just start playing and we'll see what happens.
If you like it, and if you don't, we'll do something else.
I mean, I'm not sure if people know out there, I mean, how much, I don't know, where I come from, and I think it's not like we're looking for the exact perfect thing and we got to have this through this chain, through that thing, through this. We just like, let's get something going, let's start playing, and if it needs more distortion or treble, we'll turn that up, and if it doesn't, we'll turn that down. Some people, spend days on snare sounds and all this craziness. And I think we come from the school of a lot faster. And decision making, and Ducky fit so well, into that with me, which is, let's just do this fast, because we did the record fast.
And I think all three of us were like, liked that mentality. And of course, I came from that mentality because I was paying for studio time previous, and I, was a secretary in Harvard Square, so I didn't have any money.
Yep.
But I think if all three of us agreed that it was a good sound, like, we felt totally confident in committing to that. Like, nobody was ever scared. We didn't need options.
Right.
Know? Like, and if one person didn't think it was good, I think the other two were fine with being like, okay, what is good?
And on the other side of that, the other thing that people may not know out there is, a lot of times when you're making like your first major label record and so forth, you think there's going to be a lot of maybe, meddling from the business, from the suits above, and from the A&R and the record company staff. And honestly, there really wasn't. They kind of let us do what we do, and a credit to Latterman. He's always been that way. I just made a record with Latterman. Still doesn't say shit about the music,
Yeah.
And he, he'll lean towards, this is the single, but he's not going to be like, those hi-hats are too loud. And it's it's great. And we kind of had a hands-off situation from the label, which was fantastic, because obviously we can handle it, but a lot of other times that was not the case. And so the reason maybe I think the record is so good is because there was no meddling.
Yeah, and it wasn't like the people involved in making the record, which was, you, me, Ducky, and the band, basically, and my manager at the time. Nobody was like super precious or a super yes man either. It was a fairly comfortable situation. I would say, if anything, working on A Watched Pot was actually more stressful,
right?
There was like kind of more at stake.
Yeah.
Interestingly, somebody asked, why is Where Do We Go When the Party Is Over at the end of Could Be Worse? I had always, Could Be Worse, the whole reason why I wrote that song is that there are these three songs that all do kind of the same thing. And I wanted to write a song like that with Sturmer, because I thought he would have liked those other three songs, which he did. And it was Nick Lowe's And So It Goes, Steely Dan's Reelin' in the Years, and then The Boys Are Back in Town.
Yep.
They all have a similar chord progression and kind of this
shuffle. It's that shuffle beat.
It's a shuffle beat, a similar chord progression, and then and then the kind of like almost out of time, like, verses.
The talkie singing
on the verses kind of thing. And but anyway, we were actually playing that song live at that point, because I was doing a ton of touring all throughout the making of the record, because that was like part of Aware's model. And whenever we got to that end part, we would do little pieces of some of those songs or other songs at the end. But of course, we couldn't do that on the record because we would have to pay publishing or whatever. So I think it was actually you that suggested it, John. You're like, why don't you just put Where Do We Go When the Party Is Over? That'll work over that. So yeah. But it actually was because of a live thing, because it was a fun live gag.
Right.
Like, just throw in kind of a cover.
Yeah.
But not for a whole song. You just got a little taste of a cover at the end.
Yeah, totally.
So anyway, that's the answer to that one. Let me see what else have we got here. I know this isn't about Andy, but why is he not releasing any? Oh, somebody asked about pictures. Yeah, he doesn't like any pictures to be shared of him. And although we do have very small handful of pictures of him. We do not share them because that's his request. I don't know if you have any more to say about that.
No,
John.
I mean, it's just, I mean, I just don't post. I mean, I posted one last year with one of my Japanese pictures with him. So, but it was, you know, I don't know what to say. Just he's private.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's like you can either, I don't know, I feel like it would be a breach of trust to you know, disrespect that privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is just a very private person. I mean, I'm not really in touch with him anymore. You are.
Yeah, I just mixed the craziest song for him. It's called the Baba Song by like a Korean, it was in 5 languages. That's all I can tell you. So there was 5 mixes in 5 languages, and it was crazy. So yeah, he's still completely kicking ass on the whole. It's not really composing. He does compose, but it's a lot of it's like custom songwriting for television and children's television.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, there's that. Thank you on the drums comment. I see that. King of the drums. Wow. Um,
No guitar reamping. Somebody asked about reamping. No guitar reamping.
no.
Greg Latterman with 2 T's, if you want to look him up. Kind of the head of Aware Records and management and that whole side, if you want to look him up. Somebody asked very specifically about how many drum mics we used. All of the mics.
Yeah, like, well, the normal stuff. There's nothing special.
But there's a mic, you know, I mean, it's overhead. Yeah. I think Ducky's room mic was very special.
Ducky had a special thing. I remember his under snare mic was a PZM Crown Square. You know, remember the square mic that it sits on the floor under the snare, and it gets this like, it gets the area, the space between the kick and the snare, just this snappy kind of like extra compressy sound, and that's what he used instead of an under snare mic. And it's great. So, but no, nothing special. I think a lot of my thing comes from like the mixing of the drums.
Agreed. Yeah. What was somebody had asked why are a lot of the songs in C sharp? That was like a question.
Here's why. Like this chord right here. So let me just say one other thing about, you know, Blue's influence on me as a musician / songwriter, producer, all that stuff is just that right there. Blue, I don't know if you guys know this, but pretty much if he doesn't write it on keyboards, he's writing every single song in what's called DADGAD tuning, which is, and because Boston is such a heavy rock town, you got to tune it down a half step. So that's where the C sharp comes in. So it's basically DADGAD down a half step. Now imagine this: you're making a record with a band, and there's 4 dudes in the band: drums, bass, and 2 guitars. So Blue plays in DADGAD, half step down C sharp. Bill Guerra plays in regular tuning,
a half step down.
And then the bass player plays in just regular. I mean, normal. So
he had a hip shot.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, he would actually play a C sharp note. Yes. While you would be playing this big open thing, and Bill's playing a D chord.
Yeah.
And it's like the craziest. And I'm trying to like figure out who's playing what. It's this decoding thing that had to happen. And I learned a big lesson there.
It is a big part of the sound, though, I will say, because it's like this melding of alternate tunings and non, right. Often like happening, you know, at the same time. There's already a lot of like kind of lush extended chords that are happening because of the not exactly open tuning stuff,
Right.
then it gets just a little normalized by Bill.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I think there's something unique about it for sure.
But having come from the Andrew WK record that I had done right before you, he only tuned, his thing was EB on his guitars. So every song is that. And then you guys basically played the same voicings like this, the way, and I was watching both of you going, wow, I had never played DADGAD my whole life. But, you know, of course, since then, and thank you very much, Blue, I use it all the time on everything. So how did you pick that up? Where did you get that?
Oh, my Lord. So I was in love with this guy in college, not like romantically, but like just completely infatuated with this guy. I followed him around like a puppy dog. His name was Ian Thornley, and he is now a pretty famous like guitar hero guy. He had a band called Big Wreck.
Yeah.
Canadian guy. And I had messed around with open tunings, even in high school, mostly actually, believe it or not, because of the Black Crowes, because I wanted to learn and play Black Crowes songs. So I was familiar with the concept, but he just opened up the door for me.
Did you learn guitar regular C's and A minors and like regular campfire chords?
Yes. So
okay.
That's how I initially learned to play guitar, but I always wanted to just like play songs, you know what I mean? So like I said, like I learned the Black Crowes songs in those tunings, like when I was in high school, but I didn't really become obsessed with it until college because I saw Ian, and he actually literally like sat me down one day and was like, I think DADGAD would be good for you.
Nice. That's so great.
And it was.
Yep.
You know, it sure was.
And funny side note is then I did the Switchfoot album and his thing was drop D on everything. Regular tuning, but drop D. Yeah. And a lot of the same things apply.
Yes.
Like the 6 chord, the 5 chord, the 4 chord, there's the way you finger and so forth. So it was a big little 2001, 2, 3 for me was like everything drop. And it was, I think it's a huge part of your writing. Once you started getting into keyboards and pianos, then all bets are off. But I think when you sit on a guitar and write a song, it's going to kind of have that flavor.
Yeah, it sort of like can't not have that flavor, because there are chord shapes,
right?
And those about, and I feel like I got so heavy into that almost started influencing even the piano songs, that I was writing. And it also, I think it helps you think less. It helps you to think harmonically more, because it's mostly roots and fifths, right? So like wherever your bar is, right, you're like, okay, where am I in terms of the number?
Yeah.
And I've always been a Nashville number guy, like first and foremost. So like what chord is this and how does that apply harmonically to
to the original question, why is everything in C sharp? I mean, it's not everything in C sharp, but it's because open chord is awesome and it's the tonic, and you seem to write a lot of songs. I mean, you can capo.
I did do some,
and there are some songs. And the other crazy thing about Blue is that he can actually like solo meets be free melodically in DADGAD, which is a hard thing to do because of the way that the math works on those upper strings. I try to play a melody and I'm just like, I'm lost. But you seem to be able to do it.
I do. I can solo in it, and again, that I will say that it is Ian Thornley, honestly, because like he would like, I would watch him jam, do jam sessions like multiple nights a week, and he would literally always be in a different tuning and ripping guitar. you know, so I knew it was possible. And that, so, you know, obviously I'm never going to be on that level, but I was like, well, I can do something.
Yeah. That's funny because I actually read the Steve Gorman book. Did you read it yet? Okay, it's fabulous. Everyone read the Steve Gorman, drummer from the Black Crowes and friends of ours. Read his book. I can't remember what it's called, but it's amazing. But he tells a story of when Draculius came to check their band out the first time and they were sounding like REM. And he's like, you know what you guys should do? Should listen to the Rolling Stones. And he sat down Rich Robinson and said, open tunings, look into it. And comes back like a month later, and now everything is awesome and everything's changed, and they get signed and they become the Black Crowes. And they drop the whole REM thing.
Yeah.
So anyone who's kind of stuck musically, get into open tunings, get into Joni Mitchell, get into it.
Get right the frig into it.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. I saw an Owsley comment. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we know Owsley. Yep. We knew him. He was fantastic. Love him. Loved his record. Huge influence on everything that we do. He's the biggest Beatle ass freak. And I mean, I know you loved it. It was a couple years before your album. His album, it was 99.
Oh my God. And you know, I think somebody said something, or Stacy wanted us to talk about, like, do we think the record still holds up or whatever? But I will tell you that Owsley record definitely still holds up. The sounds, the songs.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
Yeah. And he was a guy where it was like, it felt okay to like meld musicality, I guess, you know, with rock, you know, like you know, raucousness.
And another just to put it on the record, another guy who loved Steely Dan like we do. So, you know, as much shit as Steely Dan gets by musos, I don't know if that happens anymore. I think they've kind of aged out of that. But back in our day, it was kind of like, oh, Steely Dan. No. Yes, Steely Dan. We all loved it. We all worship it. And Owsley absolutely loved it. So
explain to somebody like why I like Steely Dan, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't like anything else that's like that. Right. But like when it's like the most excellent example and version of a particular thing, it's like undeniable, right? And
absolutely.
That's what that is.
So yeah, but we love Will Owsley. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see here. I know there's some stuff that we missed. Yeah,
that's when I crash video. What's up with that? What are they talking about? Is there a video for that?
No.
Okay. Ursula and Sayonara are great pop rock tunes. Thank you, Bush.
Oh, It'll Never Be the Same Again. I just never released that song. You know, it was obviously placed into, that was a song I wrote like the day after 9/11 with Peter Moore. So, in revisiting these songs for your upcoming anniversary show, is there a song that really sticks out as a favorite for you? Perhaps one that you enjoy more now than when you ever first wrote it? That's a good question. I mean, I will say the oldest song, well, the oldest song is Dance Dance Baby Doll Dance, but really the oldest song kind of next to that is Searching for the Satellites. And I mean, I recorded that like 4 or 5 times in college, and then like 2 or 3 times after I got out of college, and it's on the Headroom record. And I definitely always felt like that was a good song. You know, yeah. I still like playing it. It's rich harmonically without being like so crazy that there's nothing to grasp onto. I think it's really good lyrically. So I still really like and appreciate.
What about, let me ask you this. What about Somebody Else? How do you feel about that now? Because I think that's a lot of people's favorite.
Yeah, I like playing it. I think lyrically it's a little bit more like of that era, kind of. It's maybe like a little bit less universal, or that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Was that song written for the Spider-Man movie or just happened to fit?
It just happened to fit.
Okay.
But that definitely was a song that like helped get me signed, you know. It was a song that everybody was excited about.
It was, yeah, I remember, because it was Latterman was all about it and getting it with who was your pub deal at the time, who was the guy, but that, you know,
Yeah,
they're putting together that soundtrack album, and it's going to fit, and that's why it was a big part of, I think, you're signing your stuff or whatever was that song.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, I definitely still like it. I still like playing it. It's not necessarily like one of my favorites or anything, but
You hit the high note at the end still?
huh?
You hit the high note at the end still?
I'm down to C now, but yes.
Okay.
Uh, within a half step.
Yeah, that's still impressive.
Of the original, yeah.
It's high. It's high. Just looking on the right here. DADGAD songwriting.
Start. That's why I'm in Boston now. The rehearsals start next week. Somebody asked about how that's going. Wish us luck. Oh, somebody asked, what about the vocals on Redhead? Talk about the vocal recording and production process.
I remember the at Ducky's, at least, it was an API mic pre. Just, you know, he had those little 500 series and a distressor, I believe, and that was kind of my chain too. So like and I don't remember what he used for a vocal mic, but I remember it being hot. And your vocal.
I'm a very loud singer.
Yeah, loud singer, but we weren't afraid of, like, you know, a heated like recording. And now it's like, funny because I'm fighting the harshness all the time, like in mixing, like with this plugin called Soothe that you probably use also. But it, you know, it just all the ouchy 4K frequencies, and back then I just remember there was tons of them, you know, and it was good. But analog, when we would mix on a console, it didn't hurt as much for some reason. So
yeah, it is interesting because I can't stand that aspect of my voice now.
Right.
And I'm like constantly fighting it. But when I listen to those, you know, older records, like that is my voice. Like the feature of my voice is that like hyper ouchy laser beam. Jason Sheff calls it the laser beam.
And the other thing, you know, as we're huge Queen fans and Jeff Lynne ELO fans, I mean, the background vocals and the stacking was very important, and Prince being another huge influence. Just, you know, 3-part, 4-part, 5-part, double it, triple it, huge stacks, pre-mix those to a stereo track, decide that's what it sounds like, put a flanger on it, and call it a day. And it's all over that record. All over that record.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like bolder background vocal choices that weren't very popular at the time and still are not very popular now.
That might be the problem with the whole thing, is just maybe we were just at the wrong time. I do feel like, you know, 10 years before and it could have been a billion seller. So
yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, it was you know, Stacy had another couple questions here. Favorite recording location, we kind of went through that. You know, it's probably the Ducky studio. Memorable moments, I mean, we're kind of going through that.
you could share some pictures because you actually have some pictures of both.
Okay, yeah.
Your original as well, your original Minneapolis studio, as well as I know you have some stuff from Room 9.
Okay, so let's do that and hope we don't get hacked.
Seriously.
Okay, so I say share screen. Are you there, Blue? I seem like I lost you. Seem like I lost Blue, but I'm here. Okay. Are you there, buddy? Seemingly not. I can't screen share until you allow that. There you go. You're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I obviously hit the wrong thing there.
So I think it's queued up for you to add my screen share. There you go. So this is the first day we ever were together, cutting I Know with my C12 VR AKG mic. I don't remember that was the mic, but that's what we used.
And that's your Whirly, right?
It is my Whirly right there. The same one. And I'm just going to whip through these and see what happens. Pretty quick. A lot of these are just down in my basement in Golden Valley. The first weekend we were together. There's Michael Bland, the session that we did. And then you did have a lot of cool cardigans, and you were a little more into the fashiony used clothing thing back then. That green cardigan is probably one of the most famous. You love your beer. That seems to be Miller High Life. Was that your thing?
I definitely drank a lot of that at the time.
So this was my studio setup back then. Pro Tools and in the basement, and there. Oh, so you did sing through my Audio Technica 4060 mic. That's the other room. And there's us. I think I played a gig with Thrush that weekend, and you came to it, I think.
Oh, yes.
You might have even sat in with us or something.
I don't think, but maybe.
So this is at Willie Wisely at somewhere. I don't know where that is. That's a rehearsal space for you. That might have been your Boston Fenway Park place.
Yep.
Yeah, this is that. That Budweiser was like the classic. JP, is that his name?
Yeah, and JP's playing the show too.
Awesome. So yeah, and that black telly, what's that? I don't remember that.
It's a 73. I still have it.
Great. So now we're at Room 9 from Outer Space. There's Max playing bass, playing an F sharp. So that is probably somebody else, 4-chord. Elvis Presley Boulevard. Look at that. I did not know he had that up there. So there's me sitting at the Ducky. There's Ducky on the couch. Ducky's place was just packed with gear and awesome. I remember flying in my Pro Tools rig because he didn't have. I don't think he had one.
He did. He had a 4-track like Pro Tools one. I gotta pee so bad. I'm gonna pee. You keep going through these.
I'm gonna talk. So we've got. There is his SG Melody Maker kind of one pickup P90 guitar. I love that one. I think that's Ducky's. This is Ducky's, what it looks like when you're sitting at Ducky's studio. He loves Elvis. And a cool white outfit. The Line 6 distortion pedal on the floor. That thing was very useful. There's Blue looking all. That's a good shirt. Yep. Then I took the band outside and started taking pictures of them. I think I'm in these pictures, of course. But yeah, it was 314 like C Street, I think. There's Ducky. And just gonna roll through here. He had that I think it was a Jack Cassidy Epiphone hollow body bass. There's Bill with his white SG. He loved that guitar. He probably still has it. Blue sitting on the couch singing some reference vocal is my guess. And then all these outdoor pics that I just had at the time. I had a camera and I just was always taking pictures. So I think that's where these came from. The Boston shirt, daytime. Seems like there's Steve Smith and Latterman, these two guys, and then Pete Galley, the manager. And now there was a party. See if when Blue gets back, he can talk about this party we had. Blue, I just got to the point where, remember we had a choir party.
Yeah, that was so fun.
So talk about that. I think I only have a few pictures here, but there's a bunch of people you invited over to sing on a ton of songs.
Yeah, so that almost was like, because I hadn't quite like gelled the idea of the Get Up Choir yet, but I know actually that we did it on more than one occasion as well, because we have gangs on Get Up and That's When I Crash, but it's on Where Do We Go When the Party's Over, of course, and Trust Me, the big Anna chorus at the end. So yeah, it was a few songs, and it just was like, I don't know, I really don't remember like why we decided to do it. I may have done it once with Ducky,
right?
Like previous.
Well, you were always talking about big choir. So I think, and then like, who's that guy with the beret and the glasses? He's awesome.
Dude, that's T Max. He ran the local zine, The Noise.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Love that. Okay, so I'm almost done. I kind of whipped through. These are, so you also met Kai Ahrens during that time. Yeah. And he at the time lived in Minneapolis and moved at the same time to LA, but he took all these awesome photos.
Yeah.
And there's Bill, and now we're back in Minneapolis at my studio. There's Dan Wilson and you on the, I think Dan sang all the backies on that song, right? Something's Got to Give.
Yes.
So
he also sort of helped out a lot with a song called Terrible Secret.
Yep.
That didn't end up making the record. It was a song from Headroom, but has subsequently been released on other versions. But yeah.
So, and then there's you guys up in my kitchen. There's more Kai. There's you sitting at Ducky's with a to-go drink from I don't know where. I don't know who that is. A photographer came in one day, taking pics at Ducky's. I mean, you can see. Okay, now we're out in LA at my Mansfield studio, Mansfield Lodge, which was basically a one-car garage with a closet as the vocal booth. And there is you being you. So all the stuff moved out. My 12-string, you guys, now we're back. This is not really chronological, but I'm just about done. Steve Smith, Latterman, we kind of went through these. All right, I'm looping and repeat at this point. So you should unshare me, or I'm gonna unshare. Stop screen sharing.
Yeah. So let's try to we have a few more minutes here, and I really want to if anybody has any questions, I want to kind of try to roll through those. So we're looking. Hit us with questions if you have them.
I'm looking at the list here. You guys look 14 years old here. Well, yeah. I mean, yep.
I think we look good for our age.
Yeah. I'm way older than you, so But I think I saw Mark Wahlberg, some guy says. Yeah, there was a lot. I will say, making a record in Boston. I mean, I grew up in Boston till I was 18, 19. Then I moved to Minneapolis. I never really got involved in the scene there. I wasn't. I had zero connection to the Boston music scene until you, basically. Yeah. And that was really cool for me to be able to kind of just, realize that was happening 5 miles from my house that I grew up in.
Right.
But so it was really cool. And of course, it was a great opportunity to just keep the Boston accent alive and bring it back. And we use that a lot. And yeah, and you're not from there, but you can do it real good.
Somebody said, please comment on the Three's a Charm sample. So here's my deal with the Three's a Charm sample. If you guess it exactly, the whole thing, I will confirm if you're correct. But that's it. That's where it begins and ends. So let's see. How has your songwriting process evolved since the early days? I would say it's devolved. You know, I would say I was a lot more kind of insistent on certain things, whereas now I'm a lot more open, I think, to all kinds of different ways of doing it. And obviously a lot of that has come because I've done so much like professional songwriting. So, you know, I think my process has changed a lot. I mean, really, Fields, you're the person who pulled me into co-writing.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean,
well, one of the first big ones was the Jonas Brothers. What's that one? The Whale in the Pool with My Mother.
I mean, even previous to that, like, because like I had written with a few people here and there in college or whatever, but like my process was mainly to write with myself. But you introduced me to all of these, like,
right, yeah,
really amazing songwriters like Dan Wilson.
Well, it was funny because there was this genre of songwriter at the time, which was the guy that's band had just broken up, you know, like a Sturmer or like a Wilson, where Semisonic's kind of done, and it's like, okay, because I brought in Dan to write with Evan and Jaron, and I think that might have been one of his first ones. You know, these guys that were, you know, completely amazing, incredible songwriters that were no longer basically performing live, if you will.
Right.
And, you know, pulling that energy and just that experience in, you know, with a younger artist, I mean, it's just made so much sense to me. So, and I always have been into putting, you know, my friends together as like, you guys should do something. So,
yeah. Have you got any plans to put 4 up on streaming? Yes, we're trying to get that back up on streaming. Bleu, your duets over the years are amazing and getting better. I'll take it. What's an ultrabus? I'm not sure what that is in reference to. Jeff, what do you mean? What were we talking about? The Carly Page co-write is very good. Thank you. Yes, Yamil is the conductor of the Get Up Choir in Boston. Oh yeah, Ducky's
Yamil, trust me, is the na 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 na, that part.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you don't remember that, it was that, which is you know, a Steve Perry nod.
Yeah, big time. I can imagine the cover of the record not exactly being what you were going for, but turning out as a happy accident. Yes, I would say that definitely is true. Favorite early aughts bands in Boston. I actually made a playlist, which I think is up on my Instagram, and it actually has it's all aughts, Boston, and a lot of great stuff up there. But here, I'll
You got the elevated drops on that?
Oh, you know what? I there were so many. I actually didn't put them on there. I should. I can add to it, obviously, so I will. I very specifically didn't put Waltham on there, and I'll tell you why. Because the record that they released at that time does not sound good. What is Pino? Come on, man! But they made a record with Ducky, and for reasons that I still don't understand, that record never got released. But you know what? Why don't you guys just release that record now? That record is fucking unbelievable. But that's really the only reason why they're not on this. But of course, I loved Expanding Man, Bill's band, Count Zero. Peter Moore's band. Wheat, we can't talk about Boston without talking about Wheat. Viola, a Dear Leader, but before that they were the Sheila Divine. I kind of liked Dear Leader's songs better. The Everyday Visuals, of course, Joe Siders, who I've worked with for many, many years. The Cautions, Eric Barrow's band. Gigolo Ants, they were like a little bit before us, and
I did a record with them.
You did?
I did. It's like an EP that came out around 2000-ish.
No way.
Dave Gibbs, and there was what's that guy's I saw them a lot in the early days of LA. He now owns a bar in like Sherman Oaks.
Oh, I've been there many, many times, and a sushi restaurant.
Oh wow!
It's called Sushi Note, like Note, but
right.
Japanese pronunciation.
Cool.
Dude, it's unbelievable. Seriously, you have to go there. It's like one of the few sushi places where it also feels like a date night spot.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like classy.
I see Wheats per second. Every second is such a cool album. Well, just a side note is we made 3 of the songs at Ducky's Room 9 studio.
Yeah.
That would be and Sturmer sings on Mercury, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, the Pills are on there. Actually, I just saw Corin from the Pills last night because he and Ducky are good buddies. Waltham put a band sticker on literally every sign in Massachusetts. Yes, they did.
Any Pat Badger extreme comments?
I mean, just still one of my best friends. And he was there for everything. Like he was there for Headroom and all that. And of course, I lived on his alpaca farm for a year. While I was heavily making the LEO record, which of course Fields also participated in. And so that's why that record's called Alpaca's Orgling. But yeah, he's great. And we still work together. I made a couple records for him that I produced and did a bunch of co-writing on. And
I noticed he's in a Super Eagles tribute band.
Dude, they're huge.
It looks incredible.
Dude, they're like the best Eagles cover band, and they crush all over the place.
I saw that. That's great.
Dude, he calls it a pat trick instead of a hat trick. So this summer he played what the hell's the name of that place?
Cape Cod Melody Tent?
No, but it's
sorry.
No, but it's oh God, why am I blanking on the name of this? Anyway, it's this big legendary venue. And he's playing there with the Dark Desert Eagles, which is the Eagles cover band. He's playing there with the biggest Journey cover band.
He's in a Journey cover band too?
He's subbing for the summer. And he's playing there with Extreme. All Saturday gigs.
Oh, great.
At this fucking giant,
that's awesome.
Legendary venue. Pat is the best. I'm gonna see him while I'm here. And I see him every time I come to town. He's still like one of my best friends. We talk all the time.
Hampton Beach Club Casino.
Yeah, Beach Casino, of course. Duh. Yeah. I was gonna say Club Casino, but I'm like, that doesn't sound right. But that's what it is. Sharon might have the 3rd best voice in Extreme. I mean, I have recorded Gary on a couple of occasions now, and he is an absolute legend. I mean, everything that comes out of that guy's mouth just sounds like velvet gold.
So yeah, back on the Redhead tip, just looking back on the 20 years ago thing, there's not many albums that I've made. I mean, it's starting to happen now for me. Because the core of my producer catalog started around that time. So I'm getting into this 20 years ago thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to say, it really does. I listened through the other day and I was just like, wow. Although I don't remember the specifics of every little thing, I just know that I loved doing it and super proud of it. And although we didn't really have #1 hits or anything like that, I feel like it's, one of the best records I've ever made.
Wow. That means a lot. that, and I'm so appreciative of all of the music that I've gotten to make with you over the years. We have butt heads
Sure.
before, but always like out of a love of making exceptional music. I think.
Yeah, no question.
And the reason why I became a professional songwriter and producer, and have had any success at it at all, starts with Ducky and then you. It was, and you guys were willing to, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I remember the making of Redhead almost like I was asking as many questions as I was answering. Like, I remember asking you about how you were doing what you were doing, like, all the time. I don't know if you remember it that way or not, but like, I feel like I was super ready to like soak up a lot of information, especially technical stuff, honestly. Yeah. Like I wanted to know about that stuff so much, and you were more gracious, than I think most people would have the patience for.
Well, I mean, I feel like not many, if I go back and just like look at every, you were more technical than most acts that I work with.
Right.
So, sitting next to me over my shoulder while we're editing things or working on a sound or working on a vocal, that, a lot of people just sit in the back and don't get involved. And you were immediately were in there, and that didn't bother me at all. I'm so used to just sharing, how I do things. I mean, a lot of people just watch and you're like, okay, you see it happen. But I think you were just, I could tell you were thirsty to learn how to do that, to do it without me, basically, which you did.
You basically like bought me my first laptop, got me set up with Pro Tools. You didn't actually buy the laptop, but you literally like picked out the laptop.
Yeah.
You installed Pro Tools on it. You got me an MBox.
Yeah.
And you showed me how to use those things, and that changed my whole life.
Yeah. Michael Bland once told me I'm a positive nuisance, in that and just a quick story on that is he didn't have an email address in the mid-90s, and I was like, Michael, you need to have email. He's like, I don't want that. I'm like, you're gonna need an email address. So we sign him up to Yahoo or whatever it is at the time, and of course he doesn't check it for a year, and he finally calls me a year later. He's like, hey, thanks for that email, setting up that email thing. I just got offered the Christina Aguilera tour, but it was like 9 months ago and I never checked it. So he's like, I missed out on that, but thanks for setting me on email. Now I know that it matters. So, it's important that you obviously, this is what you do. You are a professional songwriter producer now, and not a secretary in Kenmore Square or wherever you worked. But Harvard Square, yeah. So, and it's funny. I'm not the type of guy that has interns or assistants, because I kind of do it all alone. I prefer to just not have someone in the way. But I knew you were, able to do exactly the same thing. And I think same thing. You probably don't love an assistant in your way.
Or I would be able to do.
Yes,
it.
Exactly. And well, and not everyone. I mean, there's a million. There's not a million, but there's many talented people who just don't have that producer thing, which is like keeping track. And the other thing about you, Blue, is you're a finisher, which is an important skill to have when you're in art.
Right.
Finish.
I like finishing and moving on.
That, and maybe that's even more important than I mean, doing it well is important, but I think a lot of people will just say just doing it, like, you getting up every day and doing it is actually, yes, you have 1,000 songs that no one's ever heard that are probably shite, But that's what got the other 1,000 that are incredible. So
yeah, totally. But yeah, you know, I did just want to say that I look back on that experience, not just fondly, but like it was one of the most important experiences of my life, you know, easily. And so, you know, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for trusting in me. You could have, you know, kept pushing and tried to get Brendan O'Brien and all the, you know, the big producers of the day. But I think it was a good match. And you know, as we still make music together, if you will. So, you know,
Yeah.
it
And
lasted.
yeah, exactly.
Jeff Schuler says
Rare.
one thing about being a producer. Jeff Schuler says know when to be done. Does that mean we should close this up?
I think it does mean that. And I have something else that I'm doing in 20 minutes. So,
well, that was awesome. That was great to reminisce on all that. I'm not sure if we covered it all, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really also just want to thank everybody else for caring and being here to, like, you know, listen to us ramble about this. It makes it it's fun to have an audience, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, if it was just us talking, I think it would not have been the same.
It definitely wouldn't have been the same. I'm sure we still would have had fun.
Yeah.
But we would have talked a lot more shit about other people.
Yeah, probably. We don't do that. Never.
No. Well,
all right. So awesome.
Again, yeah, and I wish you're going to be here for the show, Fields, but you'll be here in spirit, and you know, I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. All right, thanks. Signing off. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.